Yehovah, search my heart. Keep me from betrayal in any form. Teach me to stay awake with Yeshua. Drink the cup you give and stand with him when the world turns against him. Yehovah Tzva'ot, Yehovah of hosts, Yehovah of armies. Psalm 24 verse 10, who is the King of glory? Yehovah Tzva'ot, he is the King of glory. Why this name from Matthew 26? Yeshua could call 12 legions of angels, yet submits. The chapter looks like Yeshua is powerless before human authorities, but in reality, Yehovah Tzva'ot is present, and the armies of heaven are restrained by his will, not absence of power. This name underlines the paradox. All the armies of heaven stand ready, while the shepherd chooses to be struck. Yehovah Tzva'ot, holy, holy, holy. Please fill me and lead me, and cover me and stir me, and speak through me with your Ruach Kodesh, your set-apart breath, your Holy Spirit, that I may speak your written words with boldness and humility to those who listen. I ask all these things in Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, the Messiah, the Anointed, the Aleph Natav's name. Amen. We'll start with the Shema. Listen and obey. Children of Yehovah, pay careful attention and respond. Yehovah is our power and authority. Yehovah works in unity, echad, with himself. And you shall act upon your love, achava, to Yehovah with your power and authority, with your thoughts and mind, with your entire body, with all the muchness that you have. Yod, He, Vav, He. Hand, behold, now, behold. Matthew 26. When Yeshua, the Aleph Natav, had finished speaking, he said to his Talmudim, disciples, as you know, Pesach is 2 days away, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be nailed to the execution stake, cross. Then the head Kohanim and the elders of the people gathered in the palace of Caiaphas, the Kohen Haggadol. They made plans to arrest Yeshua, the Aleph Natav, surreptitiously, and have him put to death. But they said, not during the festival, or the people will riot. Yeshua, the Aleph Natav, was in Beit Anya, at the home of Shimon, the man who had Zarat, a woman who had an alabaster jar filled with very expensive perfume, approached Yeshua, the Aleph Natav, while he was eating, and began pouring it on his head. When the Talmudim, disciples, saw it, they became very angry. Why this waste? They asked. This could have been sold for a lot of money and given to the poor. But Yeshua, the Aleph Natav, aware of what was going on, said to them, why are you bothering this woman? She has done a beautiful thing for me. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. She poured out this perfume on me to prepare my body for burial. Yes, I tell you that throughout the whole world, wherever the good news is proclaimed, what she has done will be told in her memory. Then one of the 12, the one called Yehuda from Kriot, went to the head Kohanim and said, what are you willing to give me in return? In turn, if I turn Yeshua the Aleph Natav over to you. They counted out Aleph Tav 30 silver coins and gave them to Yehuda. From then on, he looked for a good opportunity to betray him. On the first day of Matzah, the Talmudim disciples came to Yeshua the Aleph Natav and asked, where do you want us to prepare your seder? Go into the city to so-and-so, and he replied, and tell him that the rabbi says, my time is near. My Talmudim, disciples, and I are celebrating Pesach at your house. The Talmudim did as Yeshua, the Aleph Natav, directed and prepared the seder. When evening came, Yeshua, the Aleph Natav, reclined with his 12 Talmudim, disciples, and as they were eating, he said, yes, I tell you that one of you is going to betray me." They became terribly upset and began asking him, one after the other, "Master, you don't mean me, do you?" He answered, "The one who dips his matzah in the dish with me is the one who will betray me. The Son of Man will die just as the Tanakh says it. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for him had he never been born." Yehuda, the one who was betraying him, then asked, "Surely, Rabbi, you don't mean me?" He answered, "The words are yours." While they were eating, Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, took a piece of matzah, made beracha, broke it, and gave it to the Talmudim disciples, and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Also he took a cup of wine, made the beracha, and gave it to them, saying, "All of you, drink from it. For this is my blood, which ratifies the new covenant, my blood shed on behalf of many, so that they might have their sins forgiven. I tell you, I will not drink this fruit of the vine again until the day I drink new wine with you in my Father's kingdom." After singing the Hallel, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Yeshua, the Aleph Natav, then said to them, "Tonight you will all lose faith in me. As the Tanakh says, I will strike Aleph Tav the shepherd dead, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have been risen, I will go ahead of you into the Galil." "I will never lose faith in you," Kepha answered, "even if everyone else does." Yeshua, the Aleph Natav, said to him, "Yes, I tell you that tonight before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. "Even if I must die for you," Kepha replied, "I will never disown you." And all the Talmudim disciples said the same thing. Then Yeshua, the Aleph Natav, went with his Talmudim disciples to the place called Gat Shamanim, and said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Kepha and Zebedee's 2 sons. Grief and anguish came over him, and he said to them, "My heart is so filled with sadness that I could die. Remain here and stay awake with me." Going on a little further, he fell on his face, praying, "My Father, if possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not what I want, but what you want." He returned to his Talmudim disciples and found them sleeping. He said to Kepha, "Were you so weak that you couldn't stay awake for me even an hour? Stay awake and pray that you will not be put to the test. The spirit indeed is eager, but human nature is weak." A second time he went off and prayed, "My Father, if this cup cannot pass away unless I drink it, let what you want be done." Again he returned and found them sleeping. Their eyes were so heavy. Leaving them again, he went off and prayed a 3rd time, saying the same words. Then he came to his Talmudim disciples and said, For now, go on sleeping. Take your rest. Look, the time has come for the Son of Man to be betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let's go. Here comes my betrayer." While Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, was still speaking, Yehuda, one of the 12, came, and with him a large crowd carrying swords and clubs from the head Kohanim and the elders of the people. The betrayer had arranged to give them a signal. "The man I kiss is the one you want. Grab him." He went straight up to Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, and said, "Shalom, Rabbi," and kissed him. Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, said to him, "Friend, do what you came to do." Then they moved forward, laid hold of Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, and arrested him. At that, one of the men with Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck at the servant of the Kohen Haggadol, cutting off his ear. Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, said to him, "Put your sword back where it belongs, for everyone who uses the sword will die by the sword. Don't you know that I can ask my Father, and he will instantly provide more than 12 armies of angels to help me? But if I did that, how could the passages of the Tanakh be fulfilled that say it has to happen this way? Then Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, addressed the crowd. So you came out to take me with swords and clubs, the way you would the leader of a rebellion. Every day I sat in the temple court teaching, and you didn't seize me then. But all this has happened so that what the prophets wrote may be fulfilled. Then the Talmudim disciples all deserted him and ran away. Those who had seized Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, led him out to Caiaphas, the Kohen Haggadol, where the Torah teachers and elders were assembled. Kepha followed him at a distance as far as the courtyard of the Kohen Haggadol. Then he went inside and sat down with the guards to see what the outcome would be. The head Kohanim and the whole Sanhedrin looked for some false evidence against Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, so that they might put him to death. But they didn't find any, even though many liars came forward to give testimony. At last, however, 2 people came forward and said, "This man said I can tear down God's temple and build it again in 3 days." The Kohen Haggadol stood up and said, "Have you nothing to say to the accusation these men are making?" Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, remained silent. The Kohen Haggadol said to him, "I put you under oath. By the living God, tell us if you are the Mashiach, the Son of God." Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, said to him, "The words are your own, but I tell you that one day you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of Yehovah and coming on the clouds of heaven." At this, the Kohen Haggadol tore his robes. "Blasphemy," he said. "Why do we still need witnesses? You heard him blaspheme." "What is your verdict?" "Guilty," they answered. "He deserves death." Then they spit on his face and pounded him with their fists. Those who were beating him said, "Now, you, Messiah, prophesy to us. Who hit you this time?" Kepha was sitting outside in the courtyard when a servant girl came up to him. "You too were with Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav from the Galilee," she said. But he denied it in front of everyone. "I don't know what you're talking about." He went on into the porch, and another girl saw him and said to the people there, "This man was with Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav of Nazareth." Again, he denied it, swearing, "I don't know the man." After a little while, the bystanders approached Kepha and said, "You must be one of them. Your accent gives you away." This time he began to invoke a curse on himself as he swore, "I do not know the man." And immediately a rooster crowed. Kepha remembered what Yeshua, the Aleph and Tav, had said, "Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and cried bitterly. What is the Hebrew word that encapsulates this chapter? Meh-see-RAH. Handing over, delivering up, transferring into someone's power. Also used for betrayal in context. Matthew 26 is a chapter of meh-see-RAH. Judah hands over, betrays Yeshua. The leaders hand him over to death. Yeshua, at a deeper level, hands himself over in obedience to the Father's will. Mesirah here reveals the difference between treacherous handing over and sacrificial handing over. The Tanakh spine of Matthew 26, 1, Zechariah 11, verse 12, 30 pieces of silver. Zechariah is paid 30 pieces of silver for his shepherding the value of a slave, and told to throw it into the potter in the house of Yehovah. Matthew 26, Judas agrees to betray Yeshua for 30 pieces of silver. The good shepherd is valued as a slave by his own leaders. Direct prophetic alignment. 2, Zechariah 13, verse 7. Strike the shepherd, scattered the sheep. Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. Yeshua quotes this explicitly. His arrest will scatter the disciples. This reveals that even the panic and failure of the disciples are inside Yehovah's prophetic script. 3, Daniel 7, verse 13. Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. Yeshua tells the high priest, "From now on, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven." He claims that Daniel 7:13, he claims the Daniel 7:13 identity under oath in the courtroom. This is the moment where the accused prisoner declares himself the cosmic judge. Psalm 110 verse 1, sit at my right hand. Yehovah says to my master, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. Yeshua joins Psalm 110:1 with Daniel 7:13 when he speaks to the high priest. The Sanhedrin think they are judging him. He tells them they will see him seated at Yehovah's right hand, the place of supreme authority. These four texts form a single revelation. The Good Shepherd is sold for slave money, struck according to prophecy, apparently defeated, yet in truth he is the Son of Man and Master, seated at Yehovah's right hand. Core theme: Yeshua, the Passover Lamb and Good Shepherd, is betrayed, handed over, struck, and apparently overpowered. Yet through this very Mesirah, he establishes the new covenant, reveals himself as the Son of Man of Daniel 7 and the Master of Psalm 110, and exposes every heart around him. How can we learn to love our Creator, Yehovah, with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength? We can love Yehovah by refusing every form of betrayal, choosing loyalty to Yeshua when it costs reputation, comfort, and safety. Love Yehovah by staying awake with Yeshua in prayer instead of sleeping through the hours of testing. Love Yehovah by accepting his cup, submitting my will to him, as Yeshua did in Gethsemane, trusting Yehovah Tzva'ot even when he restrains his armies. How can we love our neighbors as we love ourselves and as Yeshua loves us? By not weaponizing intimacy the way Judas does, never using closeness, kiss, or shared history to wound. By standing with those who are falsely accused or unjustly treated, even when it is risky, not scattering with the crowd. By strengthening brothers and sisters who have failed, as Yeshua will later restore Peter instead of discarding them when they stumble. What are the top 3 fruits of the Spirit found? Faithfulness, emunah. Yeshua remains perfectly faithful to the Father's plan, even when friends betray, disciples flee, and courts mock justice. 2. Obedient love, ahava, linked with submission. In Gethsemane, love is expressed as, not as I will, but as you will. True ahava is willing to drink the cup for the good of others. 3. Courage, givurah, inner strength. Yeshua walks back toward those arresting him instead of running. Courage in this chapter is quiet, surrendered strength, not loud assertion. The handing over of Matthew 26:1, anointing at Bethany. A woman pours very costly perfume on Yeshua's head. Others call it waste. Yeshua calls it preparation for burial. While leaders and Judas are moving toward betrayal, one heart wastes everything on him, the opposite of selling him cheap. 2. Judas and the 30 pieces of silver. Judas seeks out the chief priests. They agree on 30 pieces of silver, Zechariah 11 verse 12. The shepherd is priced. The betrayal is formalized. Mesirah, in its darkest form, handing over for profit. 3. Passover Seder and New Covenant. Yeshua identifies the betrayer at the table. He takes matzah and cup, speaking of his body and blood of the covenant. While men plan to hand him over to death, he hands himself over to covenant sacrifice. Gethsemane. Yeshua wrestles with the cup. If possible, let this cup pass. Yet not as I will, but as you will. Disciples sleep instead of watching and praying. Here, Mesirah becomes voluntary surrender to the Father's will. 5. Arrest and scattering. Judas arrives with a crowd, betrays Yeshua with a kiss. Yeshua stops the sword, reminds them he could call legions of angels, and yields. Zechariah 13 verse 7 is fulfilled as the shepherd is struck and the disciples flee. 6. Trial before the Sanhedrin. False witnesses misquote him. The process is unjust. Under oath, Yeshua finally answers the high priest, invoking Daniel 7 verse 13 and Psalm 110:1. They call it blasphemy, but in truth the judge is being judged. 7. Peter's denial. Peter, who vowed loyalty, denies Yeshua 3 times. The rooster crows, Yeshua's words are fulfilled, Peter weeps bitterly. Another form of meh-see-RAH, handing over Yeshua verbally to distance oneself from him, yet with possibility of restoration. Lawlessness versus covenant faithfulness in Matthew 26. The leaders break their own standards of justice while outwardly guarding Torah lawlessness in religious clothing. Judas embodies lawlessness as calculated betrayal disguised as devotion. "Greetings, Rabbi," and a kiss. Peter stumbles not from the cold hatred but from fear, yet his grief shows a heart still tethered to Yeshua. Yeshua alone stands as perfect covenant faithfulness, fulfilling Torah and the prophets through obedient suffering. What is the mitzvah response, Torah-Based? Command. You shall not follow a multitude to do evil, and you shall not bear false witness in a lawsuit, siding with the many so as to pervert justice. Exodus 23 verse 2. A response might look like this. Because of Matthew 26, I choose not to follow the crowd when it turns against Yeshua, not to join in perverting justice or staying silent when he is mocked, misinterpreted, or betrayed. I will stand with him and with his people, even when it means loss, and I will not sell out truth for comfort, approval, or silver. How can we find Yeshua and Torah in Matthew 26? Yeshua is the good shepherd of Zechariah, sold and struck, whose sheep are scattered, yet later regathered. He is the Passover lamb, instituting the covenant meal while knowingly walking into slaughter. He is the Son of Man of Daniel 7, claiming that identity precisely when human courts condemn him. He is the master of Psalm 110, destined to sit at Yehovah's right hand until his enemies are a footstool. He embodies the heart of Torah, faithful love, justice, mercy, and truth, while those who accuse him violate the very commandments they claim to defend. Hebrew declaration. Ni aman, eye, li ro'i, hatov, vi eshta, et ha-kos, asher yatin li avi. I will be faithful to the good shepherd and drink the cup my Father gives me. One sentence summary. Yeshua is betrayed, submits to the cup, and stands as Son of Man judge. Here are some heart-piercing questions after having read the chapter. In Matthew 26, the same chapter holds a woman breaking everything in costly devotion, a disciple selling Yeshua for silver, friends sleeping through his agony, and one of his closest followers swearing he knows he never knew him. When heaven looks at your life, which pattern does it actually resemble? Another, costly devotion versus calculated religion. The woman with the alabaster jar wasted everything on Yeshua while the disciples complained about the cost. What is the most expensive, reputation-risking, comfort-shattering act of love you have poured out on him that made others wonder if you had gone too far? Another, selling him cheap versus valuing him as king. Yehuda agreed to hand Yeshua over for 30 pieces of silver. Where are you quietly trading obedience to him for a much cheaper reward, convenience, approval, business opportunity, a relationship, or the illusion of safety? Another, table fellowship without inner loyalty. At the Passover table, Yeshua breaks bread, shares the cup, and says, "One of you will betray me." If he made that statement over your closest spiritual circle, would you automatically assume it could not be you? Or would you let his eyes search you for the seeds of betrayal, compromise, and self-preservation? Another, Gethsemane, sleeping through his agony. In the garden, Yeshua is in deep anguish, yet his disciples cannot stay awake 1 hour. Where in your life are you spiritually asleep in the very hour he has asked you to watch and pray, numbing yourself with distraction while the real battle rages? Another, sword in the flesh versus submission to the Father. When the soldier arrives, one disciple swings a sword in the flesh while Yeshua submits to the Father's will and heals the wound. Are you more inclined to fight his battles in your own strength, outrage, and fleshly reaction, or to embrace the costly path of obedience, trust, and self-control that he walked? Another, confessing under pressure versus collapsing under pressure. Before the Sanhedrin, Yeshua openly confesses who he is, knowing it will cost him everything under far less pressure. Peter denies him 3 times. How does your loyalty hold up when following Yeshua threatens your image, your network, your opportunities, or your comfort? Lastly, weeping bitterly, but then what? Peter went out and wept bitterly when he realized what he had done. When the Spirit convicts you, do you stop at emotion and sorrow? Or do you actually let that grief drive you into restored obedience, deeper humility, and a different way of living before Yeshua? We'll end with the Arianic blessing using the name. Yehovah will kneel before you presenting gifts, and he will guard you with a hedge of protection. Yehovah will illuminate the wholeness of his being toward you, bringing order, and he will provide you with love, sustenance, and friendship. Yehovah will lift up the wholeness of his being and look upon you and set in place all you need to be whole and complete. Shalom, shalom.